Have you ever wondered if you're operating from a legal standpoint and a HR standpoint in your business? I'm Payne Powell, and over the past 25 years, I've worked in senior HR globally across 16 countries with founders and leaders, supporting hundreds of employees to build workplaces that they actually love. I'm here to challenge bad HR, the kind of HR that protects systems instead of people and gives my profession a bad name. If you've been keeping an eye on the world of HR and workplace law recently, you will know that it's been an incredibly eventful start to 2026. And honestly, whether you're a founder scaling a team, a HR leader trying to stay ahead, or just someone who cares about how people are treated at work, there's a lot to unpack. So today, I want to take you on a quick tour, the version that actually makes sense and tells you what this means for real people in real workplaces. Because at the end of the day, that's what all this comes back to. It's people. So let's start at home in the UK. And on the 18th of December 2025, the Employment Rights Act received royal assent. I don't say this lightly. This is the most significant change to UK employment law in a generation. It's not a tweak. It's not like a minor update. It's a fundamental shift in the relationship between employers and employees. The changes are rolling out over the next 2 years, so not everything kicks in at once. But it's very clear what the UK government is saying. Employee rights matter and employers need to be ready. With the changes, unfair dismissal protection comes much sooner. Right now, you have to have been in a job for 2 years before you can claim unfair dismissal. But from January 2027, that drops to 6 months. Think about what that means for how founders and managers approach hiring and performance conversations. The safety net for employees is getting much better. And the compensation cap has been removed entirely. So previously, unfair dismissal awards were capped. That cap is gone. Employment tribunals now have the power to award uncapped compensation for any business that gets this wrong. The financial exposure is so serious. Now, paternity and parental leave become day one rights from April 2026. No more waiting 26 weeks to qualify. If you start a new job and your family needs you, you're entitled to leave from day one. That's a meaningful change for working parents across the country. But as businesses, it means we need to be thinking about coverage of all roles, no matter the length of service. Statutory sick pay is changing too. The 3-day waiting period is being scrapped and the lower earnings limit is being removed. So if someone is genuinely unwell and can't work, they're not penalised for it from the first day. Fire and rehire is also being clamped down on. That practice where employers terminate contracts and then immediately reoffer them to employees on worse terms will become automatically deemed unfair due to changes to core contractual terms from October 2026. It's a practice that should have been addressed years ago, and sexual harassment protections are being strengthened significantly. Employers will need to take all reasonable steps to, not just reasonable steps to prevent harassment. And that can be harassment from third parties like customers and clients. So the bar is being set so much higher, and rightly so. What does this mean for you? It means that if you're building a team in the UK right now, you need to understand that the employment landscape is fundamentally different to even what it was 12 months ago. This isn't about compliance for compliance sake. It's about building a business on a foundation that's fair, sustainable, ethical, and legally sound. Now let's zoom out and look at Europe, because something equally significant is happening there. The EU Pay Transparency Directive has a transposition deadline of June 2026. And what it means is salary secrecy in Europe is coming to an end. For years, employers have held almost all of the information when it comes to pay. They knew what roles were paid, how decisions were made. Employees often had no visibility beyond their own contract, but that balance is now shifting. Under the new rules, employers hiring in the EU will need to state pay ranges up front in job adverts before the interview, and asking a candidate about their previous salary will no longer be permitted. And employees will have the right to ask what people doing comparable work are being paid, with the answer being provided in writing and broken down by gender. And companies with 150 employees or more will need to report on gender pay gaps publicly. Here's the part that really matters. If a pay gap exists and it's challenged, the burden of proof falls on the employer. You won't be able to say it was a reasonable decision. You'll need to show with evidence that the difference was justified. Only 24% of employers surveyed feel that they're prepared for this. This is not a comfortable number with the deadline approaching. If you're operating across Europe or planning to, this one needs to have serious attention and planning put in place. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's DE&I, diversity, equity and inclusion. Because right now, depending on where you're looking, the picture looks very different. In the US, we've seen a significant wave of corporate rollbacks. Companies like Target, Meta, Disney and others have scaled back or restructured their DE&I programs. Some have removed the words entirely from their websites and internal documents. Executive orders from the Trump administration have targeted what's been called illegal DE&I, and the EEOC has been issuing guidance that creates real uncertainty for employers. The legal landscape in the US has generally shifted, but here's what the data tells us. A May 2025 survey found that only 19% of companies have actually cut DE&I funding. The vast majority are holding steady or increasing their investment. They're just doing it more quietly because the business case hasn't changed. Diverse teams still make better decisions. Inclusive workplaces still develop talent better, and that won't change because of a political shift. Now, meanwhile, back in the UK and the EU, it's the complete opposite. The UK government is pushing for mandatory equality plans on gender pay gaps and menopause support, and the EU Transparency Directive is one of the most comprehensive pieces of workplace equity legislation ever enacted. Ethnicity and disability pay gaps have also been introduced for employers. So we're living in a moment where DE&I is being dismantled in one part of the world whilst being mandated in another. That's a lot for anybody operating internationally. I truly believe the companies that win in the long term are the ones who understand that inclusion isn't a program that you bolt on. It's how you build. It's in your hiring, your culture, your leadership. The label might change. Some are calling it now opportunity strategy or workplace equity, but it hasn't gone anywhere. And 70% of Gen Z employees are more likely to stay at companies with active inclusion programs. That's your next generation of talent telling you exactly what they want and need. And something else that's now shifted in focus is mental health. Mental health in the workplace has moved from nice to have perk to being recognised as essential and really needed in organisational infrastructure. WHO has said that 12 billion days are lost every single year to depression and anxiety. That's not a well-being statistic, that's a business statistic. It costs trillions. The ISO 45003 is the first global standard of managing psychological health and safety at work, and now a benchmark for organisational duty of care. Australia has formally added psychological health protections to workplace safety legislation. It's now not something HR deals with quietly, it's something that needs to sit on the board's agenda. And there's a new phrase that I'm seeing more: quiet burnout. Employees who appear engaged, who are hitting their targets, who seem fine, but who are running on empty. And it's more harder to spot than traditional burnout because there's no obvious warning signs, no absence, no complaints, just slow, silent withdrawal. And for founders and leaders, well-being can't be an afterthought. It's not a ping pong table and a fruit bowl. It's about how you design work, how your managers lead, and whether people feel psychologically safe enough to raise concerns before they become crises. And we can't have this conversation without talking about AI and how it's reshaping the workplace faster than most organizations are ready for. More than 4 in 10 companies are planning to replace roles with AI in the next 5 years. 52% of workers are worried about what AI's impact is going to have on their job, and 75% say they don't feel confident using it in day-to-day work. That's a lot of anxiety in a workforce that's already navigating change on multiple fronts. The EU is regulating AI use in employment decisions through the AI Act. The US has a patchwork of state and local laws focused on algorithmic bias and transparency, and the UK is watching both closely. But here's what I think matters. AI isn't going to replace the need for good people leaders. If anything, it's making it more important. As technology handles more of the routine, the things that actually define a great workplace, like trust, connection, empathy, genuine care for employees, is going to become your competitive advantage. You can't automate that. So we've covered a lot of ground today. New employment law in the UK, pay transparency across Europe, the DE&I divide between the US and the rest of the world, mental health moving to the center stage, and AI reshaping everything around us. And it can be overwhelming. And I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. But underneath all of it, the core question hasn't changed. It's the same question it's always been. Are you treating your people well? Are you building a workplace where someone can do their best work, feel safe, and actually want to stay? The law is catching up to what good employers have always known. The data backs up what common sense has always told us. And organizations that get this right, not just on paper and on the website and on, statements, the ones that actually do it will thrive. So if there's anything that I would like you to take away from this, the world of HR and employment is changing fast, but the fundamentals haven't. People are still the difference between success and failure. Take care of them and you will already be ahead. I'm Payne Powell and I'm fighting poor HR.